Everyone seeks and needs a balance in life. The balance you are looking for could be financial, work and life balance, or even balance with your partner. Nature itself seeks for balance, and it does so with extreme power, as human being seems to be doing everything wrong. The message from this is that balance governs it all, and at the end of this video, you will understand how our body wants a slice of the cake himself, and what happens if he doesn't get it. Hi everyone, it's Jobs here and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to understand the concept of homeostasis, which is a key concept in biology to indicate internal balance. And you will read about homeostasis almost everywhere. Homeostasis is defined as a status of equilibrium where physical and biochemical processes can occur within a narrow range of different variables. This sounds utterly complicated. At least it did sound like it to me when I first heard of it. But at the end of this video, this will be way more clear, and you will understand why we cannot refer to homeostasis just by saying balance. Now let's observe some examples where your body is striving to maintain homeostasis through specific actions, known as negative and positive feedbacks. Negative feedback take place when abnormal changes are introduced, and the body adjusts those changes to bring them back at a normal state. The positive feedback instead is an amplification of our body's response to certain stimuli. Again, this might sound unclear, so let's dig into some examples to understand them better. Let's begin with negative feedbacks. The very first example could be the management of blood glucose levels. Every single cell in our body needs glucose for energy, and they obtain that from the glucose transported within the bloodstream. When a sugar containing meal is consumed and glucose is absorbed in the blood, brain cells understand that. The information they receive is that the body is going from a normal level of glucose to a high level of glucose. And to counteract this, brain cells signals to the endocrine gland or the pancreas that production and release of insulin is required. Insulin is the hormone that induces cells to absorb glucose in the blood. Thanks to that, now the bloodstream is back to a normal glucose level, known as normal glycemia. The same happens if low blood glucose level is detected, but in this case the hormone secreted by the pancreas will not be insulin, but it will be glucagon, which is the hormone that causes the release of glucose stored within the cell in the bloodstream. And you can understand that this is the opposite effect from insulin. Now your bloodstream is again at a normal level. Another example of negative feedback is the management of body temperature. When body temperature increases from our normal set level of 37 degrees Celsius, sensory neurons will communicate this to the brain. Once the message is received, brain cells will initiate cooling processes, and it does so by sending signals to sweat glands and blood vessels. The signal received from the brain cells to sweat glands will initiate sweating, and instead, the signal received by blood vessels will cause a process known as vasodilation, which basically refers to temporary enlargement of blood vessels. Interestingly, it is possible to observe vasodilation in very pale individuals while they are exercising, as during prolonged exercises their face turns red. This happens because while exercising, body temperature increases and blood vessels, especially in their face, grow in size. Instead, when body temperature decreases, heating processes take place. Again, the decrease in temperature is detected and communicated to the brain. However, now your brain starts generating heat, and it does so in two different ways. The first is in a mechanical way by communicating muscle cells to contract and shiver. The second is by biochemical ways, where contraction requires energy, therefore utilizing ATP, and ATP release produces heat. In this scenario, your brain will also signal to blood vessels, but in this case, rather than dilating them, it will induce vasoconstriction. This process causes your blood vessels to narrow, and this allows heat retention. All these processes will try to bring back the body into the range of 37 degrees Celsius. Now, it should be clear that your body, in the presence of abnormal changes, thrives to bring back normality through negative feedbacks. Before we dive into positive feedback examples, I would like to remind you to like and subscribe to the channel. This would honestly help me a lot to reach more people. Thank you in advance. Now let's observe some positive feedback examples. The best example of positive feedback is blood clotting. When the skin gets cut and blood vessels is damaged, platelets in the blood rush to the site of the damage. Here they release chemicals that trigger more platelets to be recruited. Once more platelets reach the site of damage, even more chemicals are released to recruit more platelets, and this continues until the cut is fixed. You can see here an amplification of what is already happening, which is the characteristic of positive feedback. What I mean by amplification of what is happening is that platelets will release chemicals to bring in other platelets, which will release increased amount of chemicals over and over until enough platelets are there to fix the cut. Another example of positive feedback could be lactation, where the child feeding stimulates the production of prolactin, which is the hormone involved in the production of milk in females. Therefore, the stimulation induced by the baby being fed leads to the increased formation of prolactin and then increased production of milk. Now you can understand that more feeding equals to more prolactin, which then equals to more milk, and this continues until feeding is not anymore required. Again, amplification of what is happening. Prolactin is produced over and over until feeding is stopped. So how does this make more sense now? Let's observe the definition in pieces and refer back to the examples given earlier. Let's start with status of equilibrium. Our body works at its best to return at an equilibrium state. Therefore, normal glucose and temperature levels, fixing cuts, or stopping milk production after lactation is over. Now, physical and biochemical processes. Physical processes can be referred as the action of shivering and contracting when temperature decreases. Instead, the biochemical processes can be represented as the ones where platelets release chemicals to recruit more platelets, or the regulation of hormones such as prolactin, insulin, glucagon, and many more. Narrow range of different variables. Here, I would like to emphasize on the word narrow. This part of the definition can be explained by the fact that human beings have very narrow parameters that delineate health from disease. For example, body temperature levels must be within a narrow range of 36.1 to 37.2 degrees Celsius. Fasting blood glucose levels must be around 70 to 80 mg per deciliter. Blood pH should be around 7.35 to 7.45. If homeostasis fails, this results in hypothermia if body temperature falls to 35 degrees Celsius, or fever if body temperature rises to 38 degrees Celsius. Then hypoglycemia if fasting blood glucose level goes below 70 mg per deciliter, and diabetes if blood glucose reaches 80 mg per deciliter. This could slightly vary in some individuals. If pH decreases below 7.35, it can result in acidemia. And if pH increases above 7.45, it could result in alkalemia. This could be very dangerous conditions. As you can observe from just these examples, human body has very narrow ranges. Also, the action that body takes to restore homeostasis must be narrow, not too much and not too little, as we say. I hope this video helped you to understand the topic and the importance of homeostasis. If it did, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also remember, a status of equilibrium where physical and biochemical processes can occur within a narrow range of different variables. It's Jobs here, and thank you again for watching. See you in the next video.